Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the European Training Seminar, Advanced Therapies Medicinal Products Revolution, Empowering Leaders for European Civic and Patients Advocacy Groups. I'm Maddalena D'Urso. I work as Project Manager for Active Citizenship Network, the European branch of the Italian NGO Cittadinanza Attiva, deeply involved in the health issues, both at the national and at the European level. As you know, and as the expert will better explain later, when we talk about advanced therapies medicinal products, we refer to all those innovative treatments that contain genetic material, stem cells, and offer the possibility of having new treatment opportunities for serious disease. Today, we have the opportunity to go into the depth of why we are forefront of the revolution, as we say in the title of the event. This training has been developed in the framework of the European project VITA, Value and Innovation of Advanced Therapies, realized thanks to the commitment of the VITA Consortium, coordinated by LSQ Global Law Firm. In particular, VITA, EU project, wants to raise awareness about a new frontier of personalized medicine represented by the ATMPS, with the final goal to contribute to promote at the European level the importance of access to advanced therapies by the highest possible number of patients. The training is just the first step of a project that foresees as a follow-up the realization of a shared document with which we will open a dialogue with the European institution, starting with the patient's needs. For instance, yesterday we spoke with the permanent representative of the Czech Republic in Brussels to try to understand the attention toward the issue that they will give during the Czech presidency semester that will start in July. Meanwhile, just today, the Working Party on Public Health of the Council of the European Union that deals with, among other issues, patients' rights, blood, tissues, and cells is united. They anticipated that probably the issue will be taken into consideration as a health priority during the Swedish semester to confirm the fact that the issue is on the political agenda and how much is important to be involved in that now. From our side, we have had the opportunity to inform members of the European Parliament, in particular the members of the interest group European Patients' Rights and Cross-Border Healthcare, which confirmed to us the interest in hosting the public meeting in Brussels, in person or online, depending on the progress of the pandemic situation, to push towards EU public decision makers to guarantee broader and fairer access on ATMs. So to come back to our training, I want just to give the floor to Mariano Votta, Active Citizenship Director.
Grazie Maddalena, thank you very much. Good afternoon, welcome also from my side. It's always a pleasure to meet in these reserved but necessary meetings to explore issues that are particularly relevant for us. In my brief introduction, I would like to hint at some principles that will me try to highlight why we are involved on this issue. To do so, I have to refer, of course, to the European Charter on Patients' Rights, promoted by Active Citizenship Network in 2003, and still now one of the main milestones for those who advocate in public health at local, national, and at European level too. In particular, the issue of advanced therapy medical products, I believe, is related to some of the following patient's rights. Of course, the patient's right of access to care. Every individual has the right of access to the health services that his or her health needs require. The health service must guarantee equal access to everyone without discrimination. on the basis of financial resources, place of residence, kind of illness, etc., etc. But it's also related to the patient's right to personalized treatment. They need to receive tailored treatments, or the patient's right to innovation. Each one has the right to access to innovative health solution verified by high quality standard and independently of economic and financial consideration. And last but not least, also is related to the patient's right to information, to be informed. Those who usually follow us will remember that last April, during the celebration of the 16th edition of the European Patient Rights Day, among others, the topic of access to treatment for advanced therapy medical product has been introduced as one of the main topics to be highlighted as a health priority in the context of the Conference of the Future of Europe and the institutional related commitment. Now we want to dedicate to this argument the importance that it deserves. Without any doubt, it's a complex issue in which information is still lacking among world population, and also in some cases also among several patient advocacy groups. For sure, innovation is an essential principle for anyone involved in health, and the principle of innovation is also linked to the principle of equity and homogeneity of access of care. Access that must be equal throughout the territories. How to combine, the first question, how to combine the above mentioned patients' right in this new challenging context, characterized by, as you know, health, humanitarian emergencies with repercussion also on the financial resources. Today, our attention will be paid to the opportunities and barriers on the new advanced therapies, which are expected to increase over the next decade, as the speaker that I thank in advance will illustrate. An encouraging but also a challenging scenario, considering the high cost and public budget constraint faced by several European countries, aspect that must be addressed today in order not to arrive unprepared tomorrow. In fact, the volume of resources necessary to access these therapies and the methods of financing are in perspective the decisive, the key aspects, because they will determine the lesser or greater availability of health system to bear the cost. The persistence of the current situation would inevitably lead, for example, to the delay in access to advanced therapy by potential patients, as well as the limitation of their use to subgroups of patients within the approved indication. It is therefore necessary to prepare in time to avoid having to face a very delicate choice problem for the health service and phenomena of discomfort on the part of potential beneficiaries. Which therapies can be reimbursed given the resources available, who, and on the basis of what arguments will explain to potential patients that access to treatment to these new therapies is not possible for everyone. Who will decide the access thresholds and based on what criteria? What do we need to know in order not to be unprepared? And in which direction we should promote a change to guarantee the right of access to as many eligible patients as possible, avoiding form of rationing or problem of financial sustainability. I'm sure that our eminent guest will help us to better highlight this aspect and try to answer this question. In short, advanced therapies represent another challenge for public health system in all countries, and we are willing to learn more because, as always, to be well informed and update is often the better precondition to promote more activism. We are confident also in the area of advanced therapy medical products. Thanks again for the attention, and of course, I wish you a fruitful seminar.
Thanks to you, Mariano. I just want to say that the training will host 3 keynote speeches by 3 experts that I want to thank in advance. Of course, after each key speaker speech, we will have some minutes for questions and answers. So please write your question in the dedicated chat and I will read them for you. I want to let you know that we are recording the seminar and that we will publish the recording on our channel on YouTube. We will also publish the documents shared during this training on the website and in the monthly newsletter of ACN. So the first part of this training is dedicated to ATMPS as a paradigm shift for patients, public decision makers, and healthcare systems. So I give the floor to Professor Andrea Grignolio, Senior Research Fellow, CNR Interdepartmental Center for Research Ethics and Integrity, and also Professor of History of Medicine at the Salute San Raffaele University in Milan. Please, Professor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me to this very important meeting on such a hot topic as advanced therapy. Can you please confirm that you are able to see my slides and hear my voice, please?
Yes, Professor.
Okay.
We hear you well, and also we can see the screen.
Excellent. I will also ask you, please, to turn off the microphone during my small talk. Well, today's path, this is a sort of a path, a fil rouge, just to show you the issue that are at stake today. I will start with few words on social rejection, if you want to accept scientific innovation. I'm an historian of medicine, and as you will see, the medical innovation are sometimes opposed by citizenship, and also from part of public decision makers. Then I will offer you, I will tell you what does it mean, a paradigm shift, in why these advanced therapy are considered a breakthrough innovation in medical thinking. And then, of course, I will go into details concerning the medicinal products for advanced therapy, but I will do it by walking together with you into a series of stories of patients. To me, history of medicine is also a history of patients that help science to develop and to innovate. So I will offer you this perspective. Then I will touch few elements concerning a very complicated payment, therapeutic efficacy and regulatory aspect, I would say, at least at the European level, the EMA. And then I will close my talk concerning, trying to close the circle, and I will go back to the patient and citizens advocacy. So let me first start with this famous sentence by our former president. The first actually is this. It was the second Einaudi, but the first president of Republic was just in charge for a few months. So he in his famous sentence, he said, "It is necessary to know in order to deliberate correctly." This is very important because this is open a political dimension linked to advanced therapy. So the problem of knowledge of experts concern not only the public decision makers, a topic on which I will go back in a short while, but also society at large. So today we used to talk about disinformation, misinformation, fake news. And now we know, with several papers and research on this topic, that, you know, fake news and falsehoods spread much more faster than truth. So innovation and scientific and biomedical innovation are at risk. And indeed, we are now in a post-truth era, you know, when relating or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential and shaping public opinion, okay, which are more based on emotion and personal beliefs than on evidence-based medicine. So this is a very important point on which I will go back. Indeed, we just, you know, a general sketch in which we can see the safety, the knowledge divide, I would say, between scientists and citizens concerning safety, for instance, on GMOs, on vaccines, or climate change, or even on evolution. There is a knowledge divide nowadays, which is enlarging, you know, these two different part of the society. And we have to bridge for the next year this gap. This is very important. I will devote the conclusion on this topic. So let me first of all explain it, you know, how can we obtain a molecule? So the R&D process concerning classical drugs, it's a long, complicated, and very expensive process. We start with 10,000, you know, this is a general sketch, a general scheme of what's going on from the lab to the bedside. So for each drug, we start roughly from 10,000 compounds, okay, a candidate molecules. Then we move to stage 2 and 3 concerning the trial development, in which, you know, safety and other elements are very important, efficacy and effectiveness. And then we, you know, there is a sort of selection, or tremendous dramatic selection, in which several compounds are eliminated, and we arrive at only one, you know, molecule. And we take for this, you know, very long process, roughly on the average for roughly 15 years, okay? And we span, you know, the cost that we spend roughly $2.5 billion over 50 years. So it's very complicated and expensive. But if we look, you know, at the advanced therapy, and I will just offer you a general scheme focusing on a particular ATMPS, the CAR-T. I will describe CAR-T in a short while. We see a much more complex process. We, in this case, just a very short analysis of the process. So the physician prescribed the advanced therapy. Then we have the patient, and from which we collect, you know, blood cells, the immunocompetent blood cells, through the apheresis center. We extract basically blood. Then the patient sample is cryogenically, you know, conserved and shipped to a specific and very advanced facility. Okay, intercontinental trip generally are a stake over this phase. Then these immunocompetent cells, for instance, immune cells, you know, that used to direct themselves to cancer cells, are separated, engineered, and grown to obtain a specific drug. Then, you know, the physician reschedule the infusion, okay, and then are shipped back to the infusion center, and then the drug are infused to the patient. In this case, again, I was talk about CAR-T cell therapy. CAR-T represent a form of cellular therapy, one of the three main family of advanced therapy, as we will see, in which, you know, some of the immune system cell from the patient are genetically modified in the lab, you know, and then, you know, to be able to recognize tumor cell. So a specific part is put on the genome in order to create a specific key to the specific cancer cells. In this way, you know, then when they are reinfused to the patient, the immune cells are really a specific oriented toward a specific cancer. We also have another huge family, very important family, an explosive, I would say, family of advanced therapy, which is the gene therapy, which allows a missing or non-functional copy of the gene to be introduced in a two very different way to cells. So, but let me just argue a few elements on how much complicated are these new medical products. First of all, they can restore, correct, or modify impaired physiological or pathological functions, okay, by correcting mutation. Then they are very particular because they often provide a single or one-shot assumption, okay, just one treatment, and in any case, not for an extended time, one or very few treatments. They are target on rare or ultra rare disease. That's why they have a regulatory system that is similar to orphan or ultra orphan drugs. And they have also another problem, as we will see. They have a significant costs because they have what is called temporal mismatch, which is a very important problem, as we will see. But I think that on this problem, it will be a center stage. It will take a center stage in a second talk. By the way, the significant cost is in a short term, but the benefits of this treatment extends over a long period of time. So this is represent a very important problem. Also, another problem specific of advanced therapy is that, you know, they provide for cell production which are genetic engineered, and this can be done always on a very complex structure. And this very advanced laboratory are grouped on a specific part of the national territories. So this is another important problem. There is also a complex storage problem. So we can just try to think that only few labs, advanced lab, can develop these very advanced pharmaceutical treatment. Then, of course, we have also on a regulatory dimension a complex evaluation, and will still lack a very, I would say, adapt and fit system to embrace this kind of advanced therapy. So we have to harmonize, you know, the value and the power of this advanced therapy to the traditional reimbursement, but also on a regulatory level. And again, this excellence center, as already mentioned, represent an important problem, which can, you know, provide, you know, as a consequence, a health mobility between regions or countries. You know, the countries equipped for ATMP and the ones that are not equipped. So the treatment center are clusters in some areas, and this is very important, as we will see, especially for patients. Now, let me just mention a few elements on the economic level. This is a very easy, elementary, scheme of how classic medicine are balanced between benefit and the value. As you can see here, we have so far, the value paid, and then each year, the benefits. So we have, a completely new way of see the cost-benefit mismatch with the advanced therapy, because we have an upfront cost at the beginning, which is very high, but since this kind of treatment solve the natural history of the disease, we can see a very long, benefits, a long time. So, and this is a very complicated especially for policymakers, which are very generally focused on immediate consensus. So how to propose this kind of pay system to to the decision makers. This is another very important problem. So so how to spend the budget is a dramatic problem. Here we will see that the gene therapy market for a future, a representation between 2014 2025, we see that acute lymphoblastic leukemia or several other diseases are at stake, large B cells lymphoma, for instance. So the world market here for advanced therapy is growing and growing each year at a very speedy rate, ranging from 25 to 30%. And also we see, if we just look at the EU, we said that we have more than 200 therapeutic developers working on this sector, and the investment for the next year is very important. It's $3.3 billion. So, and of course, the health of patients is the main aim, the aim goal of this kind of advanced therapy. But we have also to look at the investment expenditure for the country system, since this kind of therapy, are able to touch every single part of the innovations system in biomedical resources. EU fortunately dominates the production of the market, something like 40%. And nowadays we have 14 advanced therapy already on the market. And by 2030, we expect to have 60 new gene and cell therapy. This is, a general scheme for a global situation. We see that, Europe is competing with other countries like, United States, and also China and Asia. We have, 80 total gene, cell, and tissue-based therapeutic developers worldwide, globally considered. And we have, an increase of roughly 20%. So it's a real, struggle to put our hands on this kind of innovative therapeutic. Now, let me say just few words on the citizen possible, I would say, rejection of when a paradigm shift is at the horizon, okay? And I would like just to show you a very important example. This is an article from Science and it was discussed by New York Times, in which, you know, a very important, you know, in which a paradigm discovery such as, you know, the Human Genome Project was criticized. Okay, it not, you know, I don't want to waste time to, you know, to explain that of course Human Genome Project was really an innovation, a very paradigm shift in the past century, of course. But please just read here what, you know, a part of scientific community, but also a scientific society considered at that time. I remember that Renato Dulbecco just put forth the idea to, you know, to go into the Human Genome Project in 1986. Then 4 years later, you know, this article, you know, testify the problem is a rising alarm, derision, and outright, you know, into biomedical community. Critics argue that the Human Genome Project has been sold on hype and glitter rather than in its scientific merits, and that it will drain talent, money, and life for smaller, worthier medical efforts. Everybody I told to think this is an incredibly bad idea. So you can see that, you know, easily that we have to work all together to in order to try to accept you know, the paradigm shift of the advanced therapy to not only to citizens but also to decision maker. So let me go on the details on what we are talking about on when we talk about advanced therapy. The three main description, the more common description, are that they are breakthrough, very innovative, that they are curative or transformative because they transform the natural history of a disease, and one shot. So it's also called una tantum, with this Latin word to say that, of course, it's only one treatment, generally speaking, occurs for this treatment. The so-called advanced therapy are based on cells, DNA, and RNA, and include gene therapy products, cell therapy products, and tissue engineered products, or sometimes combine therapies of this kind. Let me start with the story to describe you the gene therapy. Let me start with Ashanti de Silva, a girl suffering from ADA-SCID, a severe immunodeficiency disease. It's also called the bubble boy disease. It's a rare disease, okay, that force, as you see here in a small picture, a patient living in a bubble. And Ashanti in 1990 was a 5-year-old patient who received a gene therapy in which, you know, it was delivered in his blood system cells with a therapeutic genes able to defeat her disease. Okay, so the genetic therapy in general, you know, provide the body with a corrected copy of a defective gene or a gene that fixes the malfunction through, you know, a mechanism that I will simplify as a Trojan horse principle. That is an harmless virus which carries a therapeutic gene into the patient cells, a virus with, you know, a corrected copy of the gene. The idea of the gene therapy was born during the 70s and 60s. Here is this discovery of the DNA in 1953 by Watson and Crick. And during the 60s and 70s, you know, the DNA recombinant technique, you know, allowed to scientists to build desired, you know, DNA sequences. So this was a very important phase. So when Ashanti in 1990 received these gene therapy, was just an experimental protocol. But since, as you can see here on this chart, since 2016, you know, a gene therapy for ADAS-Kid became a reality, and the EMA and also FDA accept, you know, approved this very important advanced therapy. Another very turning point in this history is the story of Emily, a pediatric patient who suffered leukemia. Leukemia is an acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and it was resistant to classical chemotherapy. And for her, it was developed a cell therapy based on CAR T cells. I will tell you in a short while what CAR T cell is in details. But now let me just show you, you know, briefly the huge evolution of immunotherapy. Here you can see at the beginning of the past century, two very important scientists, Paul Ehrlich, who discovered the magic bullet, the idea that we can obtain specific antibodies against disease, the one that he called magic bullets. And then a few years later on, von Behring, who discovered a very important, working on diphtheria, he discovered the passive immunity, the serotherapy, if you want, the idea that you can pass immunity by passing from an animal, in this case was you know, horses to human, by passing antibodies from one individual to another. So it was very important because they both, you know, sketched out, if you want, you know, invented the idea to how to fortify and how to stimulate the immune system to fight disease. Now you will see the basic element of CAR T therapy, which is very important today for treatment of the cancer. So you collect blood from the immunocompetent blood from the patient. Then by using a specific vector, you can add a chimeric antigen receptor, a specific receptor able to, you know, to recognize and destroy and attack a specific cancer cell. And then you obtain, of course, you culture these cells, you multiply these cells, and then you re-inject these cells in the blood of the patient. And in this way, the cells that engineered, you know, are, you know, became a sort of super soldiers trained to recognize cancer, okay, and identify a specific response, okay. I cannot go into the details, but basically what's happened with cancer, it's called evade mechanism. That is to say that cancer cells at certain point are able to evade the response of immune system. And with CAR T cells, you are able to put goggles, if you want, you know, to immune competent cells. So you offer to immune competent cells the possibility to focus on specific cancer cells. And then Emily received in 2012, after, you know, this very aggressive leukemia. It was a very specific, you know, kind of leukemia. It was refractory, that is resistant to treatment, relapse, returning disease. So, and for her, you know, it was, they obtained a complete remission. And today, as you can see here, Emily Whitehead is a girl who is very fine. So in the 5 years, you see regulatory part is very important, especially for patient. That's why I, you know, keep on pointing this element. It was approved 5 years later. And then the near future, is to move from liquids, from hematological cancer to solid cancer. This is a near future of CAR T cell development. Let me just quickly say a few words on the tissue cell engineering, which is very important too. So there was a development of the hematopoietic stem cell transplantation in during the 1950s, to treat blood cancer and some genetic disease. Then, of course, a few decades later, we discovered a gene therapy, as already mentioned. So drug based on stem cells. The true properties of stem cells is that they are able to regenerate, they have a regenerative power, and they have the possibility to, with gene therapy, to carrying a therapeutic genes. So we convey a specific gene into the cells, and then we have the possibility to obtain in the hematopoietic stem cell the regenerative power, so to produce several tissues with this specific corrected gene. So the first to obtain a development of organ or cell transplantation was Edward Thomas and Murray, with a very famous experiment in 1990s. And then indeed we moved from the stem cell transplantation to stem cell research, to what has been called regenerative medicine. Okay, and as usual, it was it was a famous case in 1983. Two guys, actually two brothers, the Selby brothers from Wyoming, they have 85% of their skin burnt by fire. So it was completely unprecedented, and then these two important scientists, Green and Reinhold, and at Boston Hospital, at Boston General Hospital, they were able to to obtain new skin from their stem cells. So they built a specific laboratory, and they start the new era of cellular tissue therapy. But the most important recent discovery of this path is represented by Hassan. Hassan was a boy born in Syria who suffered epidermolysis bullosa, which is a very aggressive disease, in which there are that produces sticky proteins that bind the two layers of epidermis and dermis, and they are called butterfly children because their skin is very fragile, like the surface of a butterfly. It's a rare genetic disorder. And by the way, in 2015, this Syrian refugee in Germany was welcomed in a German hospital in Bochum with a disease, with a skin burn, if you want, that the doctor had never seen before. A 7-year-old boy who had lost almost of his skin, from 80 to 85%, as you can see. Sorry for this crude and very impressive picture. Then he started to develop a bacterial infection, of course. So after this German hospital contacted a famous Italian scientist, Michele Zeluca, who was developing this kind of tissue cell development in Modena Reggio Emilia University. And after a skin graft using the tissue for a boy's father failed, he decided to do something completely unprecedented. So he tried to obtain stem cell from the very same boy and to make a replacement of the entire layer of the skin, okay? That means 1 square meter of tissue would be needed. So it was a race against time because the transplant match, the transplant small patches of Hassan skin grow from stem cells was a very hard scientific problem. Also regulators, again, as you will see, the regulators comes back to our problem, to our mind, and decided that every cell grown in the lab must meet the same exact standards of medicines, of classic medicines. So, and then the Italian group resumed tissue and gene therapy trials, devoted the entire lab to this therapy, but Hassan did not meet the inclusion criteria for this study. So, and these are the words that, you know, pronounced Michele De Luca. We need to jump 5 years ahead in an effort to save a gravely ill patient. So doctors secured approval for compassionate use of experimental therapy. So, and then researchers took a sample of the skin, as you can see here. This is from the Nature paper from Hassan, grow a large volume of tissue and then safely transplanted to and transported to Germany, and then transplanted to Hassan. And now this is the picture of Hassan 2 years ago, and of course here are the hurrah of the fathers, of the boys' fathers, who expect that all children over the world will be able to be treated in some way. So let me just, you know, synthesize that gene advanced therapy are based, and again, on genes, cells, tissue, and this revolutionary therapy can treat either diseases or trauma, including cancer, like leukemia, lymphomas, myelomas, the degenerative disease, Parkinson's, SMA, SMA, Duchenne, of course, and immunodeficiency disease like Araskid. Wiskott-Aldrich, also in Italy, is devoted to this kind, but all over the Europe on this disease. Genetic disease like beta thalassemia, or trauma or lesion like skin and cornea, as in the kind of Hassan. But several other diseases are, you know, at stake concerning this kind of treatment. And we see here 2 different way of treatment: the so-called ex vivo treatment, which means that a gene is delivered to cells outside the body, as in the case that I already mentioned. Then we have to collect cells from the patient or the donor, depending whether autologous or allogenic treatment. Then we modify, select, amplify, grow, and deliver the engineering modified cells. But we can also have an in vivo treatment, that is, gene is delivered directly to the patient by using either adeno-associated virus or lipid particle. Lipid particle became very well known with the RNA COVID-19 vaccines. Okay, so you can see here a few treatment here. For instance, Yescarta is lentivirus delivered and ex vivo, and the other famous Luxturna or Zolgensma is another case. So I would like to read very quickly these sentences by a famous scientist, Franco Locatelli, because take together all the very important problems which are involved in this in these issues. So that medicine, this kind of treatment are destined to change the natural history of many patients suffering from neoplastic or non-malignant diseases, significantly improving their outlook and quality of life. It is a real opportunity for patients, but also a challenge for our national health system to date oriented towards solidarity perspective. He's talking about Italy. So access to the best treatment without distinction, and which once again will have the primacy at the international level. He just mentioned a specific way to obtain the acceptance by regulatory system. So today, this is very important. Today, a real priority is to study innovative payment models for advanced therapy that guarantee, on the one hand, patient access to the newest therapy, and on the other, sustainability for the national health system. And let me just again give you some data. Data are very important for science. These are one of the two most impressive advanced therapy. The therapy for adult patients with diffuse large B cells lymphoma. As you can see, you can have a total remission rate like moving from 50% to 20%. Again, I'm talking about this relapse and refractory cancer disease. So cancer that resists to treatment and returning disease, but also for pediatric patients with refractory, again, a relapse acute lymphoblastic leukemia, we have a remission rate of 80%, okay? Or even for large B cells lymphoma, we have 400 patients per year in Italy, and several more in Europe. So again, just give a glance to, to the complete remission rate of this therapy. Wiskott-Aldrich syndromes are also a very important disease. You see the median survival age here, or leukodystrophy, or globoid, also a very important, or beta thalassemia, very common. And you will see here a few, numbers concerning survival age and the prevalence of this disease. So let me just, before the conclusion, say something about the near future. We are, the recently approved of, or in a way to be approved, or already approved, sorry, advanced therapy. You can see, for instance, B cells lymphoma or multiple myeloma here, and again, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which regard 25% of patients worldwide. So it's very important and diffuse disease, but also a specific form of Duchenne disease, the limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. So the key concept concerning this advanced therapy is that they are not simple pills. They are not just treat terminally healed with solid and liquid tumors, but they also cure and transform the disease. So patient with chronic and neurodegenerative disease, like, for instance, SMA or Duchenne. These are the most recent data concerning the recently approved gene therapies. But you can see here that China, Philippines, Canada, and Israel, Taiwan, so several other countries are, doing a lot of research on this level. And here I represented, just offer a scheme of cell therapy pipeline concerning non-oncological rare disease. And you can see spinal cord injury, Duchenne muscular disease, anemia, sickle cells. It's a huge family of anemia, epidermolysis bullosa, which epidermolysis bullosa is the one also cured by the that I already mentioned with Hassan, and hemophilia A. So you can see here the huge developments of this kind of gene therapy. And again, this is a general scheme of the last 6 new regenerative medicine approved in globally in 2021. okay, for the focus was multiple myeloma. And it's also a momentum for CAR T-cell therapies. In 2021 with 3 new CAR Ts. And then we have to for the next years to the prime EMAS designation. I will say a few words on this element afterwards. Continue to grow with 7 cells, gene and tissue products, which has been received with this very fast regulatory system in 2001. Then again is the next step that we have to expect for 2022-2023. You see, just just look over the gene therapy for dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa, Wiskott-Aldrich, but also gene therapy for hemophilia, etc., etc. So it's an explosive research field. This is just to show you the economic projection that is expected to grow 50%, as much as to reach 30.04 billions by 2027. So it was, it's really we expect a huge increase of money on this kind of therapy, and you can see here a real explosion of gene therapy for so far. The data were available just until 2021. So let me just finish on societal level, if you want. Today we have, if you want, this train modeling. We have few cases, excellent cases, 14, 15 advanced therapy accepted, but you will see that we expect to a huge development of this advanced therapy for the next years. So when the demand will grow, and a huge part of the citizens will realize the importance of this kind of therapy, I think that we move from train modeling to a runaway train. So that is to say that we have to expect what's already happened in the past, when politicians were unable to confront or to offer specific and available treatment to a large population. But few words concerning the safety. Are they safe? Well, the two main bioethical issue at stakes here is the economic aspects, because they are very expensive. So we have to find a way to offer this therapy to a large number of people. There are a number of possible. There are a number of citizens have to be reached. Then there are also other problems concerning the small number of patients on whom they have been tested. We still lacking even more and more each year long-term follow-up data, but also there is also the alteration of genetic modification induced by this kind of treatment, which is a very delicate topic. As far as the safety on regulatory procedure is concerned, we have to understand that we have a very long path that guarantee the safety of this treatment. We can see here two independent assessment, the commitment for advanced therapy. Here also the committee for medicinal products, which are involved in this part as decision regulatory path. These are few names just to give you an idea of how much important, how many people are involved in this process. And also people and experts with several expertise, from pharmacovigilance to certification, to scientific advice, to publication and ethics, and several other issues. So very competent and focused on several issues. Another very important point is the tremendous selection that the EMA, the European Regulatory Agency, just exert on this kind of advanced therapy. We moved from 500 clinical trials from 2009 to just 16 licensed 80 MPS in 2007. This selection, this Darwinian selection, I would say, is the evidence, the proof that it's a very severe selective mechanism. How about the regulatory system? We already have for orphan drugs a system, a regulatory system, but this model has been abandoned. And today, models that provide for the collection of LACE data and to obtain a fast track authorization, the so-called PRIME system, are preferred. So we are moving from this system, from the orphan drug, the regulatory system, which was used as a model, to a new models for the models for advanced therapy, which was, which has been, which represent a sort of development of the orphan drug system. But also we need to review, because this also, shows, some critical issues, like the regulatory process, as we will see with the next slide, the health technology assessment, which is not proper fit for this treatment, and also the drafting of the price and reimbursement dossier, which is very, very long and unable to bring the value. So we have to move. This is a very important problem for the whole European country. That's why I decided to show you this challenge that all the developers in EU, lamented and put forth to the European community. So the idea is to implement a novel payment model to advance, to adapt the HT methods to allow, the valorization of long-term effects, and then to obtain funding and affordability issue. So this is the three main challenges for a market access problem. So just quickly, why the national health system need to accept this kind of therapeutic value? Well, first of all, because they treat symptoms, instead of treating, symptoms, they cure the disease. They transform the lives of the patient, because they intervene on rare disease. Okay, so pathology without treatment, with refractory, relapsing cancer, or the typical unmet medical needs, with low response rates, poor survival, so that otherwise, are embraced for compassionate use. But compassionate use for a regulatory system is very a delicate system, because it's for few persons. It is not at all, the case to consider to keep on using the compassionate use that has been used. Sorry for these words, for Hassan case. Okay. And of course, we have, to consider also the long-term benefit, that means also less needs to use the national health system, and also and mainly chiefly to offer to a patient and especially to a child to become an active adult.
Professor,
So,
sorry for interrupting you, but I think
we finished.
to...
Sorry, just few words. These are the conclusion. So the conclusion is that we need to, the problem is the following. So I already mentioned the regulatory, the method payments, and the cost benefits mismatch. To solve the citizenship possible, criticism is to move toward transparency, scientific evidence, and the collaboration of stakeholders. That's why I suggest to take as a model patient advocacy and to offer a new vision, to move towards institutional and citizens advocacy, a sort of circular participation of citizens and institutions. That's why, to me and to part of the literature, the way to solve this kind of problem is to build a strategic alliance starting from biomedical innovation and to involve all the stakeholders, okay? Patients, payers, hospitals, developers, academics, and policy makers. So that's why, and this is the last slide, and sorry for the delay, my idea is to really put our attention on public trust and consent, on circular participation between citizenship and institution, and especially patient, centers and advocates, and in order to collective undertaking to build a sort of collecting undertaking of health, which is a value that that embrace all over the society, of course, and not only the ones on which are advanced therapy devoted and conceived. Sorry for taking too much time.
Don't worry. Thank you very much for the very clear and interesting overview. The second part of the training will deal with the ATMPS as an investment, addressing the public budget and sustainability issues with Professor Americo Cicchetti, Professor of Healthcare Management at the Faculty of Economics of Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore, and Director of the Advanced School of Health Economics and Management. So please, Professor Cicchetti.
Thank you very much for this invitation. Very happy to speak in front of an audience of patient associations, patient groups. In this school, we are experimenting a lot of different ways of engagement with your kind of expertise, because I think that this expertise is needed to face very high challenges as the one of making ATMPs available, affordable, and payable by the healthcare system. Actually, my speech will be much shorter than the previous one, also because the colleague has touched some of the points that are related to the issue of the sustainability, regulatory perspectives, challenges, and so on. I'll try to give you a very, probably pragmatic perspective, also because I had a personal experience being a payer with the Italian National Drug Agency, and I am part of the European Network of Health Technology Assessment, and we know that ATMPs and different kind of advanced medicinal products such as gene therapies, tissue therapies, cell therapies, really creating a new field of engagement for HTA bodies. I have a few slides just to be quick and try to share with you some ideas, actually, some reflections. Just a quick, overview. By the end of 2021, EMA has approved 19 ATMPs, as also my colleague said. And for example, in Italy, this is our situation. 12 out of 19 has been approved, have the right to be part of the Italian market. Only 7 has been refused. Actually, there is a good news in part, but also it's a bad news. Because of course, if only 7 out of 19 has been approved, means that all the others has not been approved, has not been paid in full, at least in one of the major markets in Europe. And the situation in other countries is not so different. Here the issue is that now we are just facing the first wave of innovation regarding gene and tissue and cell therapies, but many others will come. And if at the moment probably we are not facing so much significant challenges from an economic point of view, probably in the future we are going to be engaged in major problems in terms of sustainability. That means that we should be as systems, as healthcare systems, as also as patients, to better understand what is the value. Where is the value in these innovations? We should be able to select, to assess, and really, and also to price at the best we can. We should be able to negotiate when it's possible to negotiate in order to have the larger affordability and availability of these products when they're really valuable. And I think that there are different situations that suggest to be very careful. These are my key questions. The first one, ATMPs as a whole are going to challenge or not our healthcare system sustainability. When we are going to, one way to make it all these affordable is to use the right way to assess these technologies. But probably we need a different value framework. Is this new value framework needed? And if yes, how it should look like, and how we should set prices, and where we are going to find money to finance all these new technologies. And I have to launch a warning on this point. And this is coming from one of, in my opinion, the more promising technology, gene therapies that I have never seen in my life. I'm an economist, but I have worked with many different companies trying to understand the economic value. And really here, I have found a huge economic value, huge clinical value. But the result was terrific, because in August 2021, this company decided to get out from European market because they found challenges in reimbursing this, again, a very good product, very good therapy. And they tried at first in Germany, then in France, then they have tried in Italy, actually. You probably know that Italy has an incident and prevalence of beta thalassemia patients that is 10 times than in Germany and France. And this was a therapy that could give the opportunity to patients to avoid any kind of transfusion for their whole lives, just having a treatment in a specific moment. So one shot treatment ensuring a life free from transfusion. This therapy has not been approved in Italy, and the company decided to stop their activities in Europe, not in Italy, in Europe, Germany, France, UK, Spain, and so on. In my opinion, this is, let's say, just a signal that we can have a problem in the future, and so this is a new challenge, and we have to understand how to face this challenge. And it is important for patient groups really to understand that their support would be crucial. In the case, I have to say, of this therapy, we have found a very complex relation with patient groups, and probably we weren't able to be all together trying to get this innovation available in our markets. I think that the first point is to really understand how we need to help public systems to value correctly these therapies. We cannot say, okay, every gene therapy would be good. No, this is an error. Absolutely would be an error. We need to create an alliance with regulators, with HTA bodies, with payers, and of course with patient groups, with clinicians, really to find the right way to assess this technology. Is the UNETA model sufficient to assess gene therapies? There is a huge discussion on this point. UNETA people says that yes, the core model of UNETA is sufficiently wide to accommodate also the characteristics of the ATMPs. Many others says that there are characteristics of ATMPs that are such not to make the UNETA model applicable for different reasons, because of course there is an uncertainty in terms of clinical benefits, in terms of cost or savings for the National Health Service, because we have questions regarding the additional dimensional value that should be considered. We are just not talking about transformative technologies. We are really talking about curative technologies. So think about what happens to the kids that our colleague before myself has shown, and were able to gain, completely back their own life. Of course, this is quite new, and we need to find the right way to assess. We know that there is a time divergence between costs and benefits, because we are going to bear the cost immediately. As I said, the cell therapy for beta thalassemia was administered in one shot, and we could have the benefits in 40, 50 years. Okay, because if you administered have administered that therapy at 12 to a kid of 12 years old, this is a person that would have a normal life, till 80, 90 years old, and that means that the kind of benefit, potential benefit, is so relevant, so huge, that the kind of benefit should be measured in a different manner. Why they are different, and so which are the challenges in assessing and pricing ATMPs? We have found 4 different challenges: clinical issues, economic issues, organizational issues, ethical issues. From a clinical point of view, you have heard from my colleagues, so I'm not going to repeat that ATMPs are potentially curative, are transformative therapies, and it's difficult to find comparators when we are assessing this kind of therapies. From an organizational point of view, of course, these are not just pills. These are involving a very complex set of resources and competencies, hospitals and other healthcare organizations. And so it's very important to understand which is the impact generated by the use of such a therapy on the whole healthcare system. And we need to assess the feasibility of using our assets as a public healthcare system in the process of care in which the gene therapy is applied. It is very important to understand that when we are going to assess the value, for example, the clinical impact of the use of therapy, of this kind of therapies, think about a CAR-T, the responsibility of that value is shared between the company that is providing the therapy And the healthcare system and the healthcare public healthcare professionals that are working in the hospital that are doing, that are administering that therapy. This is totally different from, a single oncological therapy. And also from a legal point of view, we have this strange situation in which the responsibilities in case of failures are distributed between the healthcare system, the public system, and the manufacturer. That means that there is a different challenge from an organizational legal point of view when we are going to assess this kind of technology. The economic analysis, I'm going to focus a bit on this point because this is my real domain. Cost effectiveness models applied to gene therapies generally return positive profiles. So they are whole cost effective because the level of effectiveness is so high that we can bear very high cost. Of course, the problem is the affordability. The problem is that, are the budget, the public budget sufficiently big to, bear all these costs? This is the real question. So what we need is to develop budget impact models that are suitable to capture the implication of a gene therapy. At the moment, they are unsuitable because in general, the budget impact model is measuring the cost and benefit and economic benefits in 3 years. Think back to the example of the gene therapy for beta thalassemia. I should have a budget impact able to capture the impact on the budget for 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. So the classical budget impact model is unsuitable to really have an idea of the economic value beyond of gene therapy. So we need to change models. And also, there is a second issue. Since a person that is having a gene therapy usually is cured by the use of this technology, all his or her life is changing, is gaining the opportunity to work, to go back to work, to go back to life. So the value of that therapy is not only clinical, is social, is economical, but it's not economical in the sense that we are going to have savings for the healthcare service because we are not going to have further costs for treating that patient that now is cured. No. The impact we have on the economic system, that person is going to back to work immediately, be productive. This person is going to pay taxes. Is generating, it's really an investment for the whole economic system. So we need more broad models to assess the economic impact that is not measurable only at the level of the healthcare system, but we should look at the social security system. We should look at the whole economic system. Lastly, we have ethical dilemmas. And I have selected 2 ethical dilemmas that for me are quite significant, and they're both related to equitable issues. The first one is that the high cost of these therapies casts doubts on the possibility of their spread to entire population. This is concerned. This is a problem we need to think about. So there is a problem of potential rationing, and is really a dilemma from an ethical point of view. Second, in general, they're very complex, and they can be administered only by very specific and very qualified clinical centers. So we will have people that can access very easily to these therapies. For example, major centers for this kind of therapies in Italy are present in Rome and in Milan. What about people living in the southern of the country or in other regions that are not well connected with Rome or Milan? Of course, here we need to think about these equitable issues. So, how to make ATMPs affordable? I think that we have 6 possible tools and weapons to be used. At first, we need to enlarge the value frameworks. The value framework for ATMP should be different from the usual value framework, for example, used in Italy, that is looking at only clinical benefit and unmet need. Of course, clinical benefit and unmet need is very important, but the societal impact, the effects on the caregivers, the quality of life, these are not captured by the typical value framework applied in many countries. Second, we need different models for the economic analysis, for example, fiscal impact models. Third, we need to be sure that the technology is working, so we need to pay at result. That means managed entry agreements totally different from the past. Something that has been experienced in Italy for the first 2-3 gene therapies. I have to say we very effectively these are working, but we were not able to to apply the fourth strategy, the fourth tool that can make the ATMP affordable, the delay of the payments. We need to be able to distribute the payment of these therapies during all the range of the production of the clinical benefit and the production of economic benefit. And at the moment, this is not possible, at least in Europe, due to the accounting rules of European community. And so we need to change the view. And the only way we understood is to convince the European Standard Accounting Authority to consider ATMPs as an investment. If we will be able to convince the European accounting system that ATMPs are different from an aspirin, probably we will have a chance. We will have a chance to pay for these therapies in a longer range to make them affordable. But of course, to modify the accounting rules, the last time accounting rules of the European Commission has been modified in 2010. And you know for what purpose? To consider military expenditure as investment in nature. Now we have difficulties to convince the European Standard Accounting Office that an ATMP is an investment more than a bullet, more than a weapon. But it's not easy. Our Vita group with colleagues that are from different perspectives, we are together with clinicians, but mainly economists, accountants. Really, we are trying to do that. Again, it's not easy, but we think that this is the via maestra, the major road to be followed. Meanwhile, we need to be more and more able to assess these therapies, and I think that with this alliance with patient groups, we can make the difference in this new scenario. Thanks a lot for listening, and I hope that I was able to help to share with you some thoughts, valuable thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Cicchetti, for the formative keynote speech. The third part will give to us the perspective of the patients' advocacy groups, thanks to the testimony of IPOPI, the International Patient Organization for Primary Immunodeficiencies, an expert patients umbrella organizations already engaged to advocate on the topic. IPOPI today is represented by Leire Solis, Health Policy and Advocacy Senior Manager. Today they are also involved in London in an international meeting about ATMPS to testify their strong involvement in the issues. Please, Leire.
Thank you, Maddalena, and thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me and IPOPI to give an insight on how patient organizations can be involved in ATMPs. Let me just share my screen. Could you let me know that you see it? Yes? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So just, let me just see. doesn't work. Okay.
Now it's perfect. Presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see it, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so just a few words on what IPOPI is for those that do not know. It's the International Association of National Patient Organizations dedicated to improving awareness, access to early diagnosis, and access to care for patients living with primary immunodeficiencies across the globe. And basically, it really touches upon the examples given by Professor Guignolio of Ashanti de Silva and immunodeficiency diseases. So that being said, when I was preparing for this talk, I was I was reading documentation and papers, and I found this very interesting one. Is the world ready for gene therapy? And I think it very nicely links to what the previous speakers have touched upon. And actually, it made me ask myself whether are we patients and patient organizations ready for ATMPs? So with my presentation, I will just try to highlight several aspects on where patient organizations we can be involved. Not to say that I'm exhausting the topic and saying that saying all the ways that we can. I'm sure that I'm forgetting some, and some of the patient representatives amongst the participants will for sure have other experiences, and I would look forward to hearing about them. But just to present IPOPI's experience. So from a very basic perspective, if we think how do we see ATMPs, and the previous speakers have already touched upon, we can see them that they are very complex therapies. Even if we don't know the details, we know for sure that they are very complex, and they are for very specific diseases, rare diseases, but much more ultra rare diseases in many cases. They involve a very complex development process in which the development process actually it's key. And sometimes when they are authorized, regulators and also HTA payers face the question about whether do we know enough about them? Do we know enough about long-term results of those therapies? Because we know how they work in a clinical environment and on the clinical trials, but how does it look 10 years afterwards? And we don't for most of them, we don't have that type of data. It has already been said, they are very costly therapies, and something that Professor Cicchetti has also mentioned, the fact that the therapies have been developed doesn't mean that they are available, and doesn't necessarily mean that they are accessible to patients. And I will give you some examples of these elements. So I was concentrating on ADA-SCID, the gene therapy for that type, for that therapy, because it's the one that involves some of our patients. And this is a very complex process to develop the therapy for ADA-SCID patients. This second slide with this table, I will not focus on the first columns, but I would like to focus on this on the last one, and on the negotiation agreements. And well, this case is Italy, but I mean it could be any other country. And here I think it is very nicely details on how you need to look into a different payment model, and this has been already mentioned by Professor Cicchetti and Professor Guignolo.
Leire, sorry, maybe there is a technical problem because the presentation is not advancing. It seems that you are just at the first slide. We can see only the first slide.
Sorry for that.
Okay, now now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Do you see the table? Thank you for highlighting this, Madalena.
Okay, just change another time just to be sure that it's working. Okay, now it's working.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now now everybody will understand why we need to focus on the last column. Thank you for that. So as I was saying, so I mean, this is a table showing the ATMPs in Italy. It was published in October 2021, and you have the source for this and for others, all of the other images and tables that I've shown. So you can you can look at them later on if of interest. So if you look at the last column, you will see the negotiation agreement. And as I was saying, it really shows that you need to look in an innovative way. And that was very nicely explained by Professor Cicchetti. And for instance, payment at results on how you are fractionating the payment in order to be able to afford the price of the therapies. And also because it shows that you really don't know at the time of approval or providing the marketing authorization of a therapy, whether this is going to work, and it's going to work for each of the patients that are going to receive the therapy. And the last point in how we see as patients the ATMPs, it doesn't mean that the fact that an ATMP has been developed or discovered that it's available for patients and it's accessible to patients, because there are three different elements. And I mean, I'm using to say, I mean, to explain that an initiative that we've developed at IPOPI, which is called the PID Life Index, which is used to measure how life with a PID is in the different countries in the world on the basis of 6 main principles of care, one of which is therapy, I mean, like treatment, and another one is universal health coverage for therapies and for diagnoses for primary immunodeficiencies only. So here we were asking our patients whether gene therapy was available in their countries. And the map with the green colors shows those countries in dark green where patients said that gene therapy was available. Meaning, and here it was very interesting exercise, meaning that some of them said, well, the gene therapy is not available in my country, in Europe, but through the transport, the healthcare directive, or the social security system regulation, I can access it, which is, for instance, the case in Spain. And then in the map with the blue color, in blue, you can see in those countries where the gene therapy is reimbursed. And there you can see interesting cases, for instance, in Poland, where gene therapy is normally available, but it's not reimbursed. On the opposite side, in Greece, for instance, it's the patient organization that answered this questionnaire considered that gene therapy for PIDs was not available, but it was reimbursed and accessible to patients if they would travel elsewhere in Europe. So the existence is really not availability, and it's not necessarily mean accessibility. So another question that I was asked to cover is how do we get ready from a patient organization perspective for an ATMP, and for when, if we are lucky enough that an advanced therapy medicinal product is developed for our disease area. I mean, I'm not going to say what that this is a very exhaustive list. I mean, and for sure, these are just examples of how IPOPI is working on this topic. I'm sure you will have other, I mean, participants in this webinar will have other examples that will very nicely show that there are other ways of getting engaged. So networking and data gathering is one of the areas of work that we focus on. So we work with the European Medicines Agency through the Patient and Consumer Working Party to share knowledge, data, and learning on medicines development, and I will provide a very good example on that. We collaborate on with other stakeholders through for instance, the European Alliance for Transformative Therapies, which is something that Professor Cicchetti mentioned, and I will touch upon on how there are certain elements of his presentation that are perhaps answered or at least reflected on through this alliance. We do collaborate on research projects. Here, the latest example is the RECOM to develop autologous hematopoietic stem cell-based gene therapy for RAG1 type of SCID. Here, the interesting aspect of it is that it's not the patient traveling abroad, but it's actually the therapy that should travel. And the patient can stay at their home country and receive the therapy there. So this is this is an EU-funded project, but we found it very interesting, its approach, apart from the development of the therapy. We do collaborate through the development of registries to gather outcome data and self-reported outcomes. Other areas of work are information and advocacy. As I mentioned, the PID Life Index, which is an innovative tool that we developed for the PID environment. And I already explained, we have gathered at least information from more than 60 countries, and we are still expanding the number of countries that we include in our database through advocacy efforts. For instance, we organize a PID forums, which are forums with policymakers under the chairmanship of members of the European Parliament, and for which we invite other representatives from other EU institutions, such as the Commission or some bodies such as the European Medicines Agency or the ECDC to speak on specific topics. We organized the 11th PID Forum on pediatric regulation, for instance, and we touched upon gene therapy for sure. And we also looked on other topics such as curative treatment and cross-border care in another forum, and that was used to respond, for instance, to the consultations that the European Commission launches regularly on specific projects. And then we also try to provide education and information to our membership through testimonies, webinars, and mini documentaries, just to make sure that patient organizations at national level are also well informed and know about all these discussions that are taking place at European or international level, and that they can bring it to at national level and to their members. So as I was saying, there are certain examples. I mean, the previous speakers have already touched upon the work that is being developed by the European Medicines Agency. I will bring in the aspects of the patient where patients can feed into, and for sure they sit, patient representatives sit in many committees of the European Medicines Agency, but for sure there's a dedicated working party for patients and consumer organizations that touches upon and discusses areas of interest for patient organizations. And for instance, the meeting that took place in March 2021, for instance, we were discussing ATMPs, for instance, and there's a very interesting presentation. I think it's worth mentioning because it was very comprehensive, and I think it really complements the presentations that have been given by the previous speakers. So you have the source there, and I invite you to have a read of it. So, for instance, the European Alliance for Transformative Therapies, which is something that I was also mentioning as a multi-stakeholder alliance, bringing in policymakers, so members of the European Parliament. There are, for instance, an observer from the European Medicines Agency, with industry developers, researchers, patient organization, and other stakeholders to discuss specifically advanced therapies. And there are a certain number of documents that have been already produced by the Alliance, and they are available in the link that I've included there. For instance, I was highlighting the one that was produced and launched in March 2022, so very recently, on the policy asks on access to authorized ATMPs, because, for instance, that was something that the previous speakers touched upon. I mean, all of them, but enable innovative payment schemes, for instance. the congress that Madalena was mentioning in my introduction, for instance, Johannes Prévost, so the IPOP executive director, is participating in a congress that is taking place in London on advanced therapies, for instance. And I was just highlighting all the topics that will be touched upon, because this is something that shows the interest of the topic, not only from more a patient perspective, but also this was really from a developer's perspective and startups. So it really shows that the market is really looking into new therapies that will be coming into the market. But at the same time, and it's true that it's a promising area and a promising field for research. But as Professor Cicchetti was mentioning, there are some setbacks from a patient perspective, with some companies withdrawing from markets, like the example that was given on Bluebird withdrawing from the European market, but also companies deciding on focusing on specific therapeutic areas and not and leave or not continue working on others, which are also setbacks for patients that we need to be aware of, because I mean the market doesn't need to follow the patient needs. And these two examples are a clear sign that sometimes, even if you have the therapeutic need, maybe from a market perspective, it's not interesting, which is not nice, but it's the reality. So it's something that patient organizations will need to be aware of and need to be working with. So in summary, because I don't think I will be discovering much to this audience, we already explained and we've shown with the three presentations that ATMPs are complex that require data and further research and monitoring once they are approved. That authorization doesn't mean availability and doesn't mean affordability, and there are very important price considerations to be given. There are several ongoing initiatives and initiatives towards improving access to ATMPs in a suitable manner, and it's a matter of trying to know where they are, because I think there are many, and sometimes it's hard to know and be aware of all of them. And I think something that I hope I have shown, but if not, I would like to finish with saying is that patient organizations are a key stakeholder. Professor Cicchetti has mentioned it, that we need to be involved in the price negotiation, in how to assess through the HTA appraisal throughout the process, in and inclusion on the clinical trials to know what is working, what it's not, and what's important for patients. It's also key. So I think, I mean, this type of initiatives that the Active Citizenship Network it's developing with today's webinar are key to ensure that patients are there and ready for when an ATMP comes to in their disease area. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Leire. I think that in the chat there is a question for Professor Grignolo from Alessandra Veronese, that she's asking how would you suggest to approach institutions, which actions would be more efficient to cascade and debate these topics locally?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I already took so much time, and I wanted to exaggerate, but I just hide some slide that I would like to show here. In a previous version, I just wanted to mention a few elements. I don't know whether you can see my previous hidden slide. Are you able to see the slide? Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Just to know. Okay. Otherwise, I was talking all by myself. So that we need to all the literature insist on few elements. First of all, we need to bridge, the different gaps between science and society, and a European project called Citizen Science. Just mention the idea to build the scientific knowledge as early as we can, starting from elementary school, and to involve all over the education process, and then to trying to to transmit the value of biopharmaceutical knowledge to people and to citizenship. And then there are we are moving in this direction. During the G20, I participated to other scholars on health literacy projects. That means that we want to diffuse the basic elements of scientific knowledge, and specifically on health problem, to the large maximum people. And it's a very large project, which also use cognitive tools to avoid misinformation, a series of cognitive bias that are present in lay people. And this is also, of course, a second way to try to involve citizenship. Another point is to try to, let me see if I'm able to show you a few slides, because it's a very important topic to me. Is the idea to to eliminate, or at least to try to fight back all of the disinformation on a website. And this is a very important point, because also concerning advanced therapy, it's a very hot topic. Let me just mention that we in Italy, during 2013 and 15, we have a fake therapy called stamina method, in which a fake regenerative therapy was put forth in a parliament, which was close to finance this falsehoods. And then we, a very small number of scientists were able to contrast this fake news and fake therapy. But you can see that, by, taking advantage of videos, websites, and social networks, a very small group of fake scientists was closed to obtain a great results on this kind of topic. So this is a very important element. And let me just mention the last element, that this is, for instance, the G20 towards the Global Health Literacy Alliance that I already mentioned. Another element, last but not least, is that all the literature suggests that we have to rebuild the trust between citizenship and politicians. And also not only advanced therapy, but also vaccination, is related to the trust that, citizens have towards health and politics institutions. So this is a general umbrella approach that I would like to suggest. So involve people, just create a series of projects and program to to raise the public perception of the importance and role of scientific and biomedical research. I would say this. But of course, there are several other more detailed issues, but I don't want to take over all the discussion, of course.
Thank you very much, Professor Grignolio. Before saying goodbye, just some practical info. Let me remind you that we will put all the materials online on our site and they will be published in our monthly newsletter. You will soon be contacted to participate in the next steps of the project to help us define together a shared document useful for drawing the attention of national and the European institutions to the topic. Let me remind you that this training has been developed in the framework of the European Project Vita, Value and Innovation of Advanced Therapies, realized by my organization but coordinated by LS Cube, which over time brought together the following companies in the Vita Consortium: Celgene, Bristol Myers Squibb, Gilead Science, Pfizer, PTC Therapeutics, and Roche, whom we thank for the unconditional support. I want to thank for the support my colleagues from the ACN staff, Bianca, Daniela, Mayra, coordinated by Mariano, plus my colleague Elisa and our communication office. As always, we take this opportunity to remind you the upcoming events of ACN, a training session on antimicrobial resistance on June 21st. Before the summer break on 7th of July, we are holding a public event on the subject of vaccination policy, to which the European Commission DG Santé has already confirmed its participation. I want to thank all of you for staying with us, in particular the patients advocacy groups from Bulgaria, Netherlands, Italy, Malta, Albania, Croatia, Estonia, Lithuania, Slovenia, Portugal, and Belgium. So I just wish you a lovely evening.
Thank you very much. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Grazie Maddalena. Bye. Grazie.